Hey guys, I'm Tommy Gober, joined with Joe McAdam here. He and I both are curriculum development specialists with cyber.org. Um, we are super excited to have you guys all joining us today. Also happy to have uh, you guys all have access to the Virginia Cyber Range already. So that actually makes this presentation very uh, it's going to flow a whole lot easier for you once you see the course that we have available for you. Joe and I have been designing this curriculum for a good part of this year, and the range environment that we've been using, the labs, have actually been using the U.S. Cyber Range, which is the non-Virginia Cyber Range. So the U.S. Cyber Range is what all folks outside of Virginia use, but we have really used that platform to really help a lot of teachers across the country doing that, doing the different labs. So you guys have access to the Virginia Cyber Range, which means that all of the labs that we have are going to operate just as smoothly as we originally planned. We have tried to remain range agnostic because we realize that educators in other states may have their state's cyber range, which is not, not based on the Virginia Cyber Range platform. So we need to, keep them in mind. But all the pictures and such that we have in the labs do come from the Virginia Cyber Range. So with that, I want to share my screen here. I'll grab that. I'll just do the full deal here. So this is our website, cyber.org, URL, pretty intuitive there. If you go to cyber.org, up at the very top right corner up here, you've got a sign up link up here. This is where you can access the curriculum that I'm going to show you. It's completely free. We are funded through the Department of Homeland Security's CISA agency, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And so that pays for all of our time on developing this content and curriculum. So there are no catches. Some folks, you'll see like a freemium model. It's like, well, check this out. It's free, and then you only get 2 lessons or something like that. Ours is completely free. It will remain free as long as we're around, and the grant funding that takes care of us enables us to come to events like this. We traditionally do face-to-face presentations and travel all over the country. Chances are we've been to your neck of the woods in Virginia. We years ago were working with the governor's office and putting on cyber camps around the state. So always happy to make connections back in Virginia. Okay, so yesterday morning we had a session where we actually got some hands-on time with this content, but I wanted to just kind of give you a high-level, brief overview of what all we've got on this content. So again, sign up for the curriculum. It's cyber.org, and then up at the top, click on the sign up link right up here, and then that will take you into it'll give you access to Canvas. You'll get an email. It'll say it takes those of you that were in our group yesterday. What did it say? 2 to 3 days or something like that. Pay no mind to that. We usually, that's a kind of an automated message in case the folks that are taking care of our accounts get inundated with a bunch of requests. They have to go through and vet those teachers. We do ask that you use your school email address if possible to that helps kind of prove that you're coming from a school setting. We are bound to use offer this to U.S. teachers only. If you're joining us from outside the country, then unfortunately that's going to be kind of a sticky situation for us as far as getting you access to that. Not too often that comes up though. So when you get access to the curriculum, it's all housed on Canvas. You can see that displayed here. We have a bunch of different course offerings, and you can actually explore those different the different content that we've got. If you click on the Find Curricula, this will kind of give you an overview of all the different courses that we have on offer. You can come up here and you can search for individual courses, or you can select by a grade level. So if you were to sort it by, what high school courses do we have, that's going to list all of these. So cybersecurity is the course that we are looking at today. And it has a list overview, the different connections that we've got, and then the different units or domains that we have in here. So when when you get to access to Canvas, if you click on the cybersecurity course, it will take you into the course itself. And don't worry that it's housed in Canvas. If you're using Canvas or you're not, it doesn't really matter. The Canvas is just how we're delivering the content. And then I also see a question coming up. Natalie asks, if you've already registered with NICERC, which is our former name, do you still need to register again? You do not. You've probably had all of your credentials transferred over to our new Canvas page. Your account should be the same. You can probably just do a lost password if you don't have access to that. If you're not seeing cybersecurity, you can go into the which one is it? I can't remember which icon it is. There's one that's, here it is. It's the courses, the one that looks like a little book on here. And then that'll view all courses. You can choose favorites, and then clicking on a star or a heart, I think, a little star, then it will get you, it'll post cybersecurity on your dashboard view page here. Brandon says that he's got access to it. Great. So you can click on these little tiles and you can drag and drop these however you want. So if you're not seeing that, then you can drag that up from down below and pop it up right at top center there for you, or I guess top left. Okay, so when you get access, when you get into the course here, you'll see some boilerplate text on here. Look, it even says our old name, NICERC, formerly the National Integrated Cyber Education Research Center. Whew, that's a mouthful, so we just said, you know what, let's just go with what our email addresses are, cyber.org, and that's where we are today. So if you read through some of that text, it basically says that we designed this originally with a pilot last year. If you looked at that, you may have seen some of the shortcomings that we had on that. When Joe and I were talking about what to do next, we looked at the feedback we were getting from that course, and we also were looking at some of the CompTIA certifications that we had, and we settled on doing the Security Plus certification. If you're not familiar with the Security Plus certification, the objectives are outlined here on the course. We've put that PDF document here under the Resources tab. This is for the current 501 test, so the SY0 501. And as you scroll down through that, take a look at that. If you're in a K-12 setting, your CTE director or officer, whatever office does that, then you will recognize, they'll recognize the CompTIA branding on there and immediately know how to handle that, just like if they've been doing A+ or Network Plus at your schools before. Any higher ed partners, you're probably very well aware of CompTIA and what they stand for. So the Security Plus course, as you go through it, it has these 6 domains that are on here, and that's what I was zooming in up here before I scrolled off of it. These 6 domains comprise the current 501 exam. You have these 6 domains. They're calling them domains. We could think of them as units. And then, so unit 1, it's going to say 1.0, and then that's broken up into these, 1.1, what they're calling objective statements. Any education people might shudder at saying this is a true objective, but given a scenario, analyze indicators of compromise and determine the type of malware. And then they list all of these different types of malware. And then 1.2, compare and contrast types of attacks. And then you can see that the bullet list then breaks that down into all these different types of attacks. Going down, you can see 1.3 talks about the different types of threat actors, et cetera. So I'm not going to go through and read all these, but the different domains, there's a lot of material on here. The reason I'm scrolling through and showing you all this is because where you see one of these objective statements, 2.2. So we're going to have a 2.2.1, and that will map back to 2.2. And then 1 will cover, it'll be the first slide that covers these bullets that are down here. Whereas up on malware, I'm going to scroll back up here to that 1.1. On malware, you'll see that we'll have a 1.1.1, which is a very broad overview, and then 1.1.2 starts getting into all of these bullets, and then we have all those lessons. So what that looks like, if I scroll down a little bit, you'll see that we've got 1.1.1, here's the malware lesson. We've got a PowerPoint that will guide a lecture-style presentation on this, just kind of some direct instruction for you. if you're like, I'm not really sure what all they're talking about on that PowerPoint, we've got teacher notes. These teacher notes are PDF format. They're intended for you, but there's really nothing stopping you. There's nothing embedded or secret in here that would prevent you from giving this to the students to read. And so this kind of gets into the different types of malware. And you can see it's just a very broad general overview of the types of malware that's in there. Here's the Security Plus objectives that, that relate to that. The lesson itself are very short because a lot of people, when we show this to folks, they're like, that is a ton of stuff. Tommy, get real. We can't cover all that stuff in a class because look at that. Man, it just goes on and on and on. Well, fear not, because the PowerPoints here are very short. Look at this. You've got 4 slides, including the title slide. So it's 3 slides of content. What is malware, different types of malware, and different types of infection. Very, very short PowerPoints that are on here. Then you get into viruses and worms. This is the one specifically on viruses and worms. And this one is 3 content slides also. This is a virus, these are types of viruses, and these are worms. And then down here, the remaining, what is that, 4 slides? You've got, or 5 slides. You've got this really swanky animation, very high dollar. This is kind of looking at how would something that's a worm spread across the network. It would go to the network and then spread to all hosts on there. And of course, they would all then be infected with whatever malware was spreading on the network. So that's, how short and brief these lessons are. That should put you at ease, because then you're going to be able to take multiple of those lessons, combine them into a single day's instruction, and you can hit multiple of the topics on here. For those of you that are not intimately familiar with Security Plus, it is a lot of low-level Bloom's knowledge and understanding. It's not a whole lot of application generation, creation stuff. You're not actually being asked to do a whole lot. It's mostly, can you understand what the question is even asking, and then what is the logical answer on here. They're really, you have to sign this non-disclosure. You can't really give true examples on here, but you're not really getting into any of them that are any kind of trick questions. It's just like, which of these times was reflected in the log. It'll give you a security log, you read through it and you find where an event happened, and you check that off. Otherwise, it's just asking, the user is experiencing something, they didn't have their computer hooked up. What kind of security, if the computer's not hooked up to a network at all, what is this? And you could say it's an air gap. And we get into explaining what some of those are. I mentioned the threat actors briefly when showing you the objectives over here. So we've got the different types of actors that are on here. And if we look at that lesson down here, bring that one up. So this one, this was a little bit longer, but it gets into each of the threat actors, and it's a very uniform way of looking at the motivations of each of the actors. So, what is a threat actor? And then what are the types of threat actors? This list literally comes from that PDF. And then it breaks down into this kind of table for different motivations and sophistication levels. So, you got script kiddies, hacktivists, organized crime, nation states, insider threats, which are always dangerous. Ask Twitter of lately. And then competitors are also sometimes not viewed as a threat, but they indeed are. A malicious competitor might seek to, some kind of corporate or industrial espionage to find what's going on. And then just for fun, but also to kind of shine a light on stuff that the students would see, quote, in the wild. We've got the threat naming groups. So whenever you see something like Cozy Bear, why are all the hacking groups in Russia known as Bear? These are not names that they give themselves. These are assigned to these groups from outsiders, and the name, the animal in their name will reflect what the country of origin that they are operating from. So you've got all these different critters that are on here, and where they come from. I have yet, and here's a point of trivia. I have yet to figure out, why did Iran get kitten? I still don't understand that. That's just, I don't know if that's to maybe undermine their strength, their view of strength or something. I don't know. All the others seem somewhat scary and threatening, but kitten just, I don't know. Okay. So that is the lessons and the teacher notes that we have. The resources that we also have on here, tell you what, let me skip over that. I'm going to go over here to assessments. Right now we have the first 10 of these quizzes that are posted. We have, so for example, let's look at the bots, or let's do logic bombs here. So we've got a key on here that you can access, and this is all the quiz questions that we have for you on here, and then we have the correct answer marked with the asterisk. And I just realized that this one says choose 2, and we only have 1 correct answer on here. We'll need to update that. For example, logic bombs are a form of malware. Simple, true, false. So logic bombs themselves are not malware, but they could be argued as such. But logic bombs and Trojan horses are similar. And so that's going to be a true statement. And so on, you get these types of questions that are in here. And then that's the key. The quiz form of this just has, it's the same questions, just the formatting is a little bit different. And then the students would mark in their correct answers down below. If you are making use of a learning management system, an LMS, Canvas, Blackboard, Moodle, Schoology, Google Classroom, you can actually import the QTI format that we have here, and that'll just take those questions and put them onto your LMS, and then you can jumble the order of the questions, jumble the test answer options on there, and the LMS will make sense of the jumble that it generates, because you're providing it the correct answer on that LMS format. If you're interested in that, just a zip file with some XML stuff in there. But anyways, you can download that and upload it to any modern LMS and be right along your way there. Okay, so back here on the resources portion, we've got some labs that are built out here. Joe, are there any labs that you want to show off on here?
It's really up to you, Tommy.
So yesterday we did the CSRF, right? Did we do that one? So the CSRF lab on here, we talk about the structure of all of these labs, tell you what kind of machines you'll use, and for the most part, we've been making use of the dual environment. And I don't recall what this setup is on the Virginia Cyber Range, what the name of the image is. We've created our image and then we tweaked it a little bit, but you don't have to tweak it. We just put some like aesthetic stuff on there. We changed like the wallpaper and the message of the day. Whenever you open the prompt, it just says cyber.org. And that's for the US Cyber Range. So you don't have to use our version with any of this. But we're using the dual machine setup. We've got Kali Linux and Windows 7 on here. Wireshark comes pre-installed. One of the things that we installed ahead of time was the DVWA. It's the Damn Vulnerable Web application. Lots of great resources built from DVWA. You've probably played with that at some point. If you have not, encourage you to check that out. So we go into the objectives that are covered. If you're in K-12 and you're focused on, or if your class is just focused on Security Plus, we talk about the Security Plus objectives on here. If you're in higher ed and you're looking at doing a Center for Academic Excellence, we list out the units that are touched on by this lab. So what is a CSRF attack? So we kind of give a high-level view of this. This would just kind of jog their memory. Once you've covered the lesson, then you can jump into what this looks like. And so this isn't meant to be the entire lesson on its own. It's supposed to augment the lesson. And then when you get down here to the lab, this is the structure that shows you the names of all the slides that are following, all the steps that are involved. Setting up the VM environments. So we say log into the Cyber Range. On a lot of these, we have put on here the Cyber Range lowercase not being proper noun there, because we want folks to be able to use any kind of virtual machine that they're on. Because we're doing everything on the Virginia Cyber Range, the names will work for you. The login student will log in for you just the same. And then how to pull your IP address on these machines. So you want to be able to identify which machine is which. So pulling those IP addresses, we explain that out here. And there we go. So it's the Kali Linux and vulnerable Windows 7. And it's as if you use the range just a little bit, Jules. And so the pulling out the IP addresses on Windows side and then logging into DVWA. So we make use of XAMPP. This was a tool that we've installed on here. Pretty trivial. We have a setup on how to install XAMPP, but it's just really kind of any Linux Apache MySQL server setup on there. That's what DVWA relies on. And then DVWA, then you log into it using the default super secure admin password login. And then from there, we're just kind of going through and showing you, change the security setting, go to CSRF option, and then change the password, open Wireshark, do this, do that, locate the get string where a password was changed, and then you can craft, you can examine the get stream or the HTTP stream, the get request on there, pull that content from that packet, and then we're going to then use that. So, folks that are elite are going to use VI. Folks like Joe are going to use LeafPad to edit. Is that too soon?
Pretty sure that shows the nano editor right there, Tommy.
That's the nano editor. Okay, I'm drawing you towards the command line. So we have you create a simple HTML page with the text that you see on the screen there, and Brandon's nano editor also. So then what we do is we put the payload in the payload, the URL that has that GET request content in there, put that in the source of that page, load it. You go to the web page, and what it's going to do is it's going to change your password, as the slides kind of tell you on here. And then when you go to log in, and we explain what all the different steps are on that HTML page, when you go to log in, it has changed your password, and that it's happened because you've been tricked into loading this resource on an untrusted site. So how do you go in and how do you defend against a CSRF attack? This kind of defense slide is actually one of the more powerful things on here. It's only one slide on every one of our presentations. It's generally one slide. But this is where some of that learning really takes place. Yeah, we're showing them how to, we're showing you how to go through and carry out one of these attacks. But the real, the mechanism for this only works on DVWA on a low security setting, or some lazy web programmer has, followed some of these bad design habits, I guess. But what's going to last from this is the defense against it. How do you defend against a CSRF attack? That's really what we're wanting to hang on to, our students to hang on to as educators. We want that lasting knowledge that it's all about defense. It's not necessarily about how to carry out this. Because Joe and I have also got questions from folks like, why are you using Windows 7? Why aren't you using Windows 10 and showing students how to do something that's modern? It's like, well, the concepts really don't change. Maybe the mechanics change as the whole cat and mouse game of leapfrog goes on, but the concepts are what we're really after. That's what we're teaching. We've also got some labs on here that don't necessarily work on the range just because of how it's set up. So if you were to have a different kind of VM setup or a physical lab setup, you could try some of those. Up here at the top, we've got setting up some back doors, and then jumping into what's another one on here? I had the privilege escalation. So if we open this one up, let's see if it wants to download here. So this is one that Joe created, and a lot of ours have the same kind of structure on here. We cover the Security Plus, and then DHS CAE units on here. Jumping into the prerequisites, and again, we show you all of the steps to do on carrying out this type of attack. This one does have a prerequisite. Make sure you have created a backdoor with one of these labs. There are different ways to carry out backdoors. That's one of the ones that we've got. So we've also got keyloggers that are set up on here. Some of these are drawing from the resources that are already on the cyber range. Some of them are new versions of these. We've got one on Wireshark that is newer. The rainbow tables is one that we did with our folks yesterday that were on our hands-on portion, developed by a fellow that's in Baltimore, Maryland. And then I went through and tweaked what he had started with, but it's going through and breaking hashes using Rainbow Crack, talking about what is a rainbow table, and then how does it work, and then how does it crack one of these passwords. And so we walk you through all the steps on how to do that, cracking the passwords, creating your own inputs. In this case, we're making some MD5 hashes and then cracking them. MD5 because they are shorter, they're easier to work with, and they're a little bit easier to crack than something like a SHA-512 hash would be. So going through here, and you can crack on a file. The whole file will be cracked, or you can do individual ones. We're actually going to be expanding this one since I toyed with this yesterday with some teachers. Then we were looking at ways that we can expand on this. And so I'll be expanding some of this and changing that. So that said, yeah, you can download Rainbow Table Attack from our Canvas page, but try your labs before you go live with your students, but don't just go through and download them all at one fell swoop and then think you're done for the semester. We will be going through and updating. We'll be adding on, we'll be enriching slides, updating it as we go. So, you know, if you were to download stuff for the school year, you'd miss the add-ons that we're doing here on the Rainbow Tables. Scrolling down here, we've also got one on Wireshark. This one's being updated also right now. Again, building on some of the workshops that Joe and I've been doing this summer, we've built up some of these, the labs, and found some more activities we can do with them instead of just hey, Wireshark is this thing, look at it, isn't it neat? We're building out some more content on that. We do have some of the command line topics that are covered on the Security Plus exam. Again, looking at that PowerPoint. You know, these are the commands that the Security Plus says that to cover: ipconfig and ifconfig. We have also added in the IP command, which when 501 was written, IP was, you know, still where Linux was headed, but that's the new tool now. And so how to show the IP command. Yep. So there's IP link there. And we've also get into, you know, what is ping, what is traceroute, nslookup, dig, ARP, netstat and netcat, TCP dump, nmap, and of course you got to have the cat joke on netcat. And then we show you how to do some of the different, you know, on netcat, how do you examine the contents that you've got and what does it look like? So those are some of the command line tools that we've got in here. Again, just keep coming back to Canvas. We'll be updating stuff as you go through these slides, as you get access to them. Let us know if there's any shortcomings on them. You're like, oh man, you were this close and you missed this really cool flag to do on here, or you missed this really cool application. Check that out. Also, knowing that we've got all this content for the 501, there's also the 601 coming out. We're going to be updating that over the next school year. It's not going to be a huge departure, but the 601 exam does add some more content to the Security Plus exam. I think it's about 20% longer exam, but the content is all the you know, kind of the corpus of what makes up the Security Plus is still largely unchanged. They just added in a few things, taken out a few things, and we'll build from there. So doing these workshops that Joe and I've been doing, we realized that a lot of teachers don't have access or familiarity or experience with Linux command line. So we have created this little appendix about what the heck is Linux. And then we have Linux 101. We've also got a 4-part series on here: 101, 102, 103, and 104. Tomorrow we kick off our 103 workshop, and then what is that, Thursday we're doing 104. We've already done 101 and 102 multiple times so far. Folks are now asking, okay, when are we going to get into the 103 and continue on from that? We will post all of those here up on the Linux appendix up here. Also in our workshops with teachers at the end of 101 and 102, we start goofing around. We have some fun with Linux. These are little goofy tools you can do. CalSay, if you're not familiar with CalSay, just kind of fun, goofy little things. Fortune, lolcat, all sorts of different ways to display files and just kind of goof around. If you are typing in ls, you'll see the listing of all the files in a directory, right? What if you get them backwards? Then you get, what is it, Joe, SL?
SL gets a train across the screen.
Yeah, you get a big train scrolling across your screen to remind you that you're a dummy and you typed them in backwards. So just fun little goofy things. That makes it fun to learn Linux as you explore some of these new commands. If you're not familiar with, check out Figlet, Tweak says. We will definitely throw that on the heap there. Joe, there's your homework.
Yep.
So we've also got, let me see if I can find it on my desktop over here. Here we are. So we have this Linux command cheat sheet. I'm going to throw this one over here on the chat box. And there we go. So if you're on Zoom chat, you'll have the Linux cheat sheet there. And it looks... I've actually shared the old one. Nobody tell our marketing department that I shared the old one. This is the new one here. I'm going to share the new one so I don't get in trouble. This is what the Linux command cheat sheet looks like. It's just, you've probably seen a cheat sheet or two in your life. Kind of shows the Linux command on the left and then explains what it does on the right. You can go down here and just kind of keep this. This is handy if you're doing anything in the lab and your students need reference to some of this. If you're doing anything with Cyber Patriot, sometimes it helps to have a cheat sheet available so that your kids aren't having to remember all of that. Natalie says, nope, never seen a Linux cheat sheet. Well, this is the best one you've ever seen. Well, Dom, you can do chmod 777, or you can do the letters. We cover them both. Tweaks has his cheat sheet. Uh-oh, now there's challenge. So now I'm going to be the second best. But we're up there. Tweaks, we're up there. We're in the top 5 at least. So anyways, we've got that resource shared for you here. We've also got into networking. Some teachers have been coming to us and saying, I don't get what these IP addresses are. What are all these numbers? When you're talking about layer 2 or layer 4, what do you mean layers? And so we get into these PowerPoints on networking overview, which dives into the OSI model, covers some vocabulary. Here's the OSI model, going through and looking at what each of those layers do. And then some more whiz-bang animations here that as data flows down the stack, then it goes to your physical, and then it spark over across your physical, whatever method that's going to be. And then it can travel back up your network stack. And that's how data flows through the OSI model. And then, of course, we get into some of the basic commands of, or the basic look of, what's a MAC address versus an IP address, and how does DNS work, et cetera. So just a overview of networking. Not required on the 501, but again, we want to do some level setting on there. And then we have legal considerations. You can think of this just as our cyber law PowerPoint. So the cyber law PowerPoint shows some of the big landmark cases like the Patriot Act that we've got in here, the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, the Electronic Communications Privacy Act, the Federal Wiretapping Act, FISA. You hear about FISA court orders. What the heck is that? GDPR. That's a European law. What is it? How does it affect us? And of course, then we need to get into how we're all interconnected via the internet. So even if we're not a direct constituent or direct beneficiary of GDPR, it's still protecting our interests. DMCA had a very huge, profound impact on file sharing, but it's also been used quite a bit in recent cyber cases as well. And then can spam, why is spam illegal, and how does that go down? Cyberbullying, cyber stalking, this comes up quite a bit in our schools. So, looking at what are the legal ramifications of, carrying out some bad actions on the interwebs. So what's great about this is it covers content that's not necessarily required by the Security Plus, but it's still stuff that's good to know. Stuff that's also good to know, engaging. We have a book called Worm, the First Digital World War. That's by Mark Bowden, author of Black Hawk Down. And this book it looks like the most bland, boring book, doesn't it? I should have kept my dust jacket. Joe probably has his copy somewhere. But what we have is chapter questions for you. You don't have to grab it, Joe. Put you on the spot. So Joe and his team has put together some chapter questions on here, and the students get the same information on here. So there's the ISBN number here. You can order the book. I'll zoom in a little bit for you. So it's got the title of the book here, author Mike Belden. We've got links to the hardback and paperback with the ISBN number, so you can source that from anywhere you want. Then the individual chapters are broken down. These chapter questions that we have, for example, just here at number 2, the author says that Phil has come face to face with the glaze. What is the glaze? How can a person avoid seeing the glaze when explaining how a system works? And then we have just some example text here for you to, what to look for in your students' responses. The glaze when a person gets confused or uninterested in what someone's telling them about a computer system. It's like whenever I do something really, really cool and I want to show somebody, and I tell my wife, I'm like, come here, look at this, and this is cool. And she's like, that's neat. That's nice. That's the glaze. So it's like, I don't know what you're doing, but I can see you're excited. So attaboy. So those are some of the examples of what we've got. We have this content for, Brandon knows that all too well. So we get down here to other questions, other chapters. It's not something that obviously not something required by the Security Plus exam. It's just something to keep your students engaged outside the classroom if you want. Joe and I found it an extremely fascinating book, kind of shows how the cyber world comes together to attack any sort of a threat. And then also on that threat, we've got cases like this malware case study that's down below here. Malware case studies, or any of our case studies really, it's a way to look at. So I've learned about, as a student, I've learned about cyber law. I've learned that there's this stuff called malware and that there's worms. What is it? Where do I ever see this stuff? I don't see it in the news. I don't see it spread across my social media pages or whatever. How real is this stuff? And so we share examples that we find in the news, notable cases that are out here. This is the case of Marcus Hutchins, a UK citizen. He helped stop the WannaCry malware years ago. So he got some major kudos for that, and really got a lot of kind of fame and glory, as it were, for helping stop that. But when he came to DEF CON in the US, he got picked up by federal authorities because he had also, prior to his WannaCry good deeds, also created some Kronos malware, the Kronos malware package. And so he was actually taken to court on that and charged under several different cyber law cases. So then what we want to do is we want students to reflect on this case, see that there are real consequences. Marcus was actually technically a minor when he created Kronos, and yet the charges carried over and when he was an adult. And so he actually had real, there's tweaks coming in with his cheat sheet. So you got to meet him at Black Hat that year. Nice. And you're going to go down with him, Raymond. We know that.
Raymond's fault.
Taught him everything he knows. So here are the questions that we have students to reflect on. Should it be legal to create malware? Should it be legal? Not is it right or wrong, but should it be legal? And right now, I think it's legal to create malware, but you can make an argument that no, it shouldn't be legal. There's no good that could come from it. But what if you never actually use it? Then the good is you're learning how malware operates, and that's exactly what happened with Marcus. He created the Kronos malware, and then he was able to get a job tracking malware similar to what he had already created. And then that knowledge that he had was able to jump ahead of WannaCry and shut it down. He knew how to react to that. So there's some good that can come from creating malware. Interesting case. So should it be legal to sell malware to others? And a lot of people are saying, no, absolutely not. And then, of course, should a judge consider good deeds of a hacker when committing a crime? Should Marcus have received jail time or not, or fines or not for creating and selling that Kronos malware? What about his good deeds? Does that outweigh the bad? So we got some interesting cases that come up here for students to reflect on. Another one that we've got is down here on steganography. This is the one that I like to share. Steganography talks about on any color print job, there are tiny microscopic little faint yellow dots on there. And it's encoded in such a way that it says, at this time on this printer's serial number or whatever, this document was printed. And that would allow any kind of forensics analysis to track that printer kind of non-repudiation, track it back to that particular printer and say, no, for a fact, you did print this on that printer. That's yours. You were logged in at this time. You're going down, sucker. This story leaked years ago. It's called the Machine Identification Code. It's on Wikipedia. You can look it up. You can actually look for them yourself, shine under a black light, and try and decode it yourself. See what that information is. How to do all that is on Wikipedia, on the web. Certainly, Electronic Frontier Foundation also has plenty of materials out there on how to do that. Then we get into, should printer manufacturers have made this publicly known, because it was kind of secret before that leaked out to everyone. Why or why not? And how might this technology be used for good? It's going to help stop counterfeiters. You know, you can't just print off dollar bills and do that. But how could it also be used for bad? It can also, you know, any kind of technology can be used for good or bad. Should users be allowed to disable the technology? You know, what am I being? I'm having to pay for my yellow ink, and yet here you are spewing it out without my knowledge or permission. So, interesting stuff. That's the kind of, in a nutshell, the case studies that we've got. We've got plenty of others on here. Wireless jamming, a guy shutting down Newark Airport, et cetera, et cetera. So, lots of materials on here. We've also got an acceptable use policy. I know we're running close to time here. Acceptable use policy, this kind of shows, look, I'm going to use my knowledge for good, not bad. And then this course is taught by our school. And then you can say, you have the students take this home, talk it over with their parents or guardians, and they would fill this portion out. They retain this first page, and then they sign and bring back this second page. So you have record that they said, look, I'm not going to hold you guys accountable for the stuff you teach me how to do that, even though we are showing them slightly outdated activities. They would have to really seek out how to carry out a lot of this malicious activity in the current in its current form. We also have lab descriptions. Joe's kind of summarized those here, and also case study descriptions, kind of giving a high-level overview of what those different case studies are. So if you're like, I wonder if there's a case study on, you name it, it'll be out there. The teaching guide kind of explains everything that I've talked at you about for the past little bit, kind of laying out the course layout here, explaining all of this. On the quizzes, those are forthcoming. There will be quizzes. We have them written. We will have about 10 questions for every single topic on here. The hang up right now is getting it in that LMS, the QTI format, so that you can put all of these into one giant repository and then dole out, maybe have your semester exam. You're going to take 1 or 2 questions from every single topic in here. That would make a very long test indeed, but you can have all that in there. So lots of good info.